Good day everyone, Trainer Maxim with you. Thank you very much for joining me for this quick fix episode. Today we're going to address the mountain climber exercise. Before we start, I want to thank everyone who supports my channel and my efforts. Thank you so much, guys and girls, for your warm comments, thoughtful comments, for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your donations, your super thanks, and also my support angels. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's have a look at the common version of the mountain climber I keep seeing in the gyms. And it, in most cases, looks like this. From here, we engage the core, we look down, and we start moving. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we do that for a minute or 30 seconds, etc. Like this. Now, it looks like we're doing a lot of core, but in reality, this exercise is much more complex than just the core. This exercise is meant to be about the core, about the spinal stabilizers, about the shoulders, and about the hip flexors. And all those four big groups must work in good coordinated fashion in order to provide you with good mechanics of movement. So let's start with the work of the core. First of all, in this version of exercise, yes, we're using essentially only the core that is very dominant in this movement. And what it means, if you use only the core, then essentially your spine will be crunched and the leg, the knee, will be moved forward, mostly not by the hip flexion, but by the core pulling on the pelvis. Pelvis is getting forward. The leg, for a reason unknown, is attached to the pelvis, so the leg will follow, and some mild activity from the hip flexors. Yes, you'll be able to bring the knee very close to the chest, but it's mostly done by the core muscles that are crunching the spine. And let me show you what's going to happen if I just return the spine into neutral position. Rib cage, upper spine, tailbone. So that's how much you use your hip flexors. To go from here to here. Not that much. And also, you're building a very tricky pattern, telling the brain when you want to bring the knee forward using the hip flexors, you rely on the core. So you're creating that pattern when the movement of the hip is associated with the strong contraction of the core. Let's say you're in this exercise and you want to flex the hip with the hip flexion, but you've been doing a lot of mountain climber, sending the messages to the brain to use the core whenever we flex the hips, and see what's going to happen. 1 and 2, and that compromises the spinal alignment. The hip flexion is a very common movement of the leg in many other elements, such as squats, such as press to handstands, and many other ones. So if you condition your brain to move the knee forward or flex the hip primarily with the core engagement that will be crunching the spine, then we have a problem here in terms of the execution of the other skills. We will not be able to execute them that well, because simply those skills would require a true hip flexion and not spinal flexion to bring the knee forward. So we really want to fix it. Let's address each part one by one. First, we will start with the spine. To successfully do this, we need to make sure that our spine is truly neutral, including our tailbone extension. We discussed in my other video on the tailbone mechanics. So we want to tuck the ribcage in, step 1, upper spine extended, step 2, so chin is above the shoulders a little bit, and tailbone extended. Good, 3. So this is your neutral spine. That's how you start the movement. Perfect. And that's how the spine wants to stay all the time when you're moving the legs. Now with this spine, when tailbone is extended, ribcage in, upper spine, the body has no choice but only to use the hip flexors. 1, since now the core is not taking the pelvis forward, not doing this. Now you're indeed using the hip flexors to flex the hip. Hip flexors are attached here and to the lower back here, into the pelvis from inside. And you go 1, 2, 3. So spine, rib cage, and you use the hip flexors. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Shoulders. A lot of times slouched spine will compromise the shoulder position as well. Will close the shoulders. In many cases, shoulders are pushed forward, complementing the collapse of the upper spine or causing it, or both. Sometimes shoulders collapse in forward spine, upper spine collapses, or upper spine collapses, forward shoulders collapses. Either is not good for us. So we want to make sure that the shoulders are not excessively pushed forward into the protraction. They want to stay open. Open, remember what it means. We're kind of using the lower trapezius muscles to pull the top of the shoulder diagonally down to the mid-spine, and using the serratus anterior muscles to pull on the shoulders a little bit into this tilt, so the blade is tilting this way. So it's not compromising the shoulder integrity, the health of the connective tissue of the shoulders, because when the blade is collapsing forward and the arm is in front of the blade, then the structure of the blade, of its bone, starts sinking into the soft tissue of the arm, and we're heading towards the shoulder impingement. A very common issue when you're protracting the shoulders and load the shoulders at the same time. We don't like it. We've discussed it many times in my other videos, including the videos on the shoulder mechanics. So now let's see what it looks like. Rib cage, upper spine, tailbone. Good. Shoulders not forward, open. Great. Looking straight ahead. And from here, you're just moving the leg forward, not trying to push it aggressively forward, because again, the hip has its limitation. The upper leg can move past 90 degrees just by a tiny bit without compromising the spinal position. If you want to bring the knee really high, you will have to crunch in the spine. There is no other option. And we don't want to condition the body to crunch the spine every time. We want, when we want to move the knee forward, as we've just discussed. So picture that when you're here with all the other adjustments, the leg is taken kind of into the socket and therefore around the socket. So we want to move the leg, the upper leg, around the hip joint and not with the hip joint because of the core engagement. So we want all those parts to work in a coordinated fashion, and each of those parts, spine, core, shoulders, hips, they should be able to do their job 100%. Now let's do the recap. When you're taking this position here, instead of doing this, you're first taking care of the spine. Rib cage stays in, upper spine extended, tailbone extended. Good. Now shoulders not pushed forward, open. Great. And now you're moving the leg using the hip flexors. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. And you're trying to keep the spine as parallel with the floor as possible. And every time the knee is moving forward by the hip flexors, we're emphasizing the tailbone extension. Otherwise, the core, which is attached to the pelvis, will be trying all the time to take the pelvis forward. And given that the leg has some momentum when it moves forward, that will make it easier for the core to take the pelvis forward. And on top of that, we also will have some stretch in the hamstrings. And the hamstrings and the back leg muscles, they are attached to the pelvis here. So when you have the tension in the hamstrings will pull on this end and will be trying to take the pelvis forward. So these three conditions will make it very easy for the pelvis to collapse forward. And we want to counter it by the spinal muscles and by activation of the hip flexors, because the hip flexors can also pull on the pelvis from this side into the neutral tilt. And that's how we counter those three factors. The core, the momentum, the tension in the back of the leg, we're countering by the engagement of the lower back muscles, by the integrity of the torso, of the core, and by the work of the hip flexors that are affecting your pelvis from in front, taking the pelvis into the neutral tilt. And that's what the mountain climber looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You see how my torso is kind of suspended by all the spinal activity, by the shoulder activity, and now I can move the legs using the hip flexors. In addition, you can slightly lean forward with the rigidity in the fingers, because without the rigidity in the fingers, nothing will stop your shoulders from collapsing forward, and you will be incentivized to compromise it with the crunch, because you will be keeping the entire weight of the body on the heels of the palms without the rigidity of the fingers. And with this situation, you just simply cannot lean forward without either bending the elbows or collapsing in the spine. So rigidity in the fingers, good. Lean slightly forward, spinal integrity, tailbone, good. Hips, 1, 2, shoulders open, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So essentially, you're keeping the torso slightly suspended. That exercise will be a great addition for your planche preparation, for your core training, for the shoulders training, or anything else. That is it. It's very simple. Give it a try, shoot a comment, tell me how it worked out for you, and go enjoy your day. I will see you in my next video. Thank you very much. Training Maximum with you. Bye-bye.